the justice system in its current form is ineffective for everyone. It doesn't work for victims. It doesn't work for people who are in prison. By the time I was 19, I was smoking ice every day. After a few years, the high's gone and the staying up for days on end is gone. You're using it to wake up in the morning, to feel normal during the day, and it all wears off. I had quite good jobs, and but I was also smoking ice in the toilets. The Tahlia that got arrested that first time deserved help. She deserved a choice. The Tahlia that got arrested and got sent to prison the last time probably needed to go to prison.
I love these part of the stories when the cops caught you.
Bloody cops.
Bloody cops.
Bloody
Here
cops.
they go again.
Yeah.
What happened? How did it all unravel?
So
What do we really know about life inside a women's prison? Beyond what we've seen on shows like Wentworth and Orange is the New Black, the answer is not much. My guest today, Tahlia Isaac, lived it. She spent years behind bars, and since her release, she's dedicated her life to advocating for women like her caught up in the system. Tahlia taught me that women in prison often aren't who you think they are. Their stories aren't simple. I think she'll change the way you see things too. Tahlia Isaac, welcome to I Catch Killers.
thanks, Gary.
Well, I'm excited to have a chat with you because I've been reading your book, and also I had a listen to the talk that you did at the National Press Gallery.
Yeah.
And wow, it was impressive.
Thank you. I haven't watched it, so that makes one of us.
Okay, well, trust me, you can watch it and you're not going to be embarrassed because you never know what you say when you're standing on stage, do you? And
I had a script, but I can't remember most of it. Yeah.
Well, I think you nailed it. Did you ever think when you were in the watch house waiting to be taken to prison that down the track you'd be at the National Press Gallery in Canberra delivering a talk, which is a pretty important stage to be on?
Yeah, I never in my wildest dreams thought, not even before the watch house, would think that that would be my future, reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool to be like the first formerly incarcerated woman to take that stage and, say the things that I wanted to say, and it was received so well. Like it was just, I expected to have some pushback, when we're talking about justice and we're talking about prisons and there's inflated, inflated like tensions around the topic, in the media and the public perception and social media. You always kind of expect that someone's going to push back and say something.
Well, I'd imagine there's a vulnerability when you're basing your talk on your lived experience, and there's that pushback that comes within the community, and everyone's entitled to an opinion, but they're in jail. Why are we concerned about someone in jail?
Yeah. Or they love to say, do the crime, do the time.
Oh, they love
that one.
No, that's a consistent one.
It's consistent, yeah. But I didn't get any of that. And I did expect it. I think I had one person message and it wasn't really coherent. So it was, just like the most loveliest message that we received and that I received, and so much support and love and kindness, which was really great.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
What was the message you wanted to get across? Like you're on stage, you got an audience, a powerful audience, that the messaging that you're delivering on stage can get out to a much bigger audience. What was the message you wanted to deliver?
I think the message I wanted to deliver was that the justice system in its current form is ineffective for everyone.
Yep.
And as from the perspective of a woman who's both been a victim and a perpetrator of, offences, I bring that unique perspective in terms of saying it doesn't work for victims, it doesn't work for people who are in prison, and they're both interrelated. They're not one or the other. And women especially are really disadvantaged after being incarcerated, and it's often very just arbitrary stuff that they are going to prison for, and so I just wanted to shift that narrative, and then the other reason the other message I wanted to get out was that women, like I wanted women in prison to see me on
Yeah.
that stage and like see part of themselves in me, or at least see that I've been in prison and that
Yeah.
is possible, and I'm not like just one. Like there's lots of us.
Well, I've seen the preparation I've done for the podcast, and also speaking to you and speaking to people that know you, that one of the things, and I think it's a testament to your character, the messaging that you're delivering, yes, it's deep and it's personal and it's about your life story and your journey. But I get the sense, and reading the book, She Is Me, and also taking the messaging from the address to the press gallery, that you're speaking for other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really careful. Like I don't want to speak on behalf of, but
Yeah.
I do. Like I get told stories, and like people trust me with their narrative and with their with their most deepest, darkest things,
Yeah.
and give me permission to share on their behalf, and it brings a bigger picture. Like it brings a broader narrative than just my own story, because it is more than just me.
Yeah.
And I always am really careful. Like I don't wish to speak on behalf of anybody, but if you see yourself in me, then I think the message is kind of the same for all of us, is that this isn't working.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the fact that you've turned your life around so dramatically can give inspiration for people, no matter how low. And we'll talk about your low points, and it got pretty low there.
Yeah.
I think that helps people, that there is a way out. And you're addicted to drugs. You're in prison. You can't, on the social scale, you can't sit much lower than that within your own mind, and it must attack your sense of self-worth and everything else being at that low point. So the fact that you found a way out of it, I think, is an inspirational message to a lot of people in there. Women in prison, we don't give it a lot of thought, do we?
I mean, it's weird because I live and breathe this stuff, so I'm like, I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
But more and more I do this, the more I realise, no, we don't really think about it, because if it doesn't impact us, why would we consider it?
Yeah, and it's you talk prisons, other than say a show like Orange Is the New Black, or what was it, Prisoner? Wentworth.
Yeah.
That they put a spotlight on women's prisons, but generally the public, when we speak prisons, you're naturally deferring to the males in the prison, not so much the females.
Yeah, and I think also like the male experience, or this like big bad place somewhere over there where bad people go.
Yeah.
And we just kind of don't even give it another thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the messages you brought out, and you used it quite a bit in the talk, social contract. And talked about social contract. And it made me think, in your perspective on what a social contract is in the context that you were referring to it. Could you talk to us about what you mean by social contract?
Yeah, so like the basis of our justice system is that in exchange for us allowing the government to enact the arms of justice, we give them full control of that, and we entrust that they are going to do it in the correct way that keeps us safe. They also need to provide the foundational conditions to keep us safe. So we're talking basic human needs that allows the community to successfully execute what it looks like to live in a harmonious community. So like food, shelter, belonging, safety, those are the fundamental things that we need to exist in a community harmoniously. And we trust the government, or the people that are in power. And Mob did it before, and it was elders that we entrusted. And then we entrusted them to enact forms of justice that were both relational, so they both kept people accountable, but also continued this harmonious relationship within the community. So that's what I mean by the social contract. It's in its current form, in the current system we have. We entrust our governments rather than our elders.
Okay, so you're talking about the Indigenous communities, how they'd rely on the elders to enforce the justice and keep the social control. And now,
I mean, that's where the concept originated from. And then kind of European philosophers kind of took the concept over. And then this is what we have now as a social contract, is that we entrust our governments, and it's supposed to be a two-way street.
Yeah. And where do you think we're failing in the social contract?
Well, the basic conditions to exist in a community harmoniously without hurting each other just are getting worse and worse. Like they're getting more strained and strained. And then our forms of justice have broken down so much so that people commit an offence, they're not held accountable to make better choices to not do that thing again.
Yeah.
Like we're not giving people the tools and the resources once they've committed once they've broken the social contract, so they've harmed someone or they've done something to harm that contract, we're not giving them the tools and the resources to not further do any harm. We put them in a prison and we go, don't do it again, but figure out how you're not going to do that. And we don't actually, like as a society or as governments, we don't actually go, okay, these are the things you need to do to not commit that offence again. And we're going to make sure that everyone's safe by helping you not go back to prison or not go back to committing those offences.
It's an approach from a different way, and it's a more complex approach, what you're talking. But I had a guest on the podcast. He had a difficult childhood, and he was talking about when he was at his most vulnerable, because he came from the environment that he grew up in, the family environment that wasn't conducive to him being looked after. He was basically homeless from a very early age and passed around from family to family. And he said, I needed protection, not prosecution. Is that the type of thing? Because when he said that, it sort of opened my eyes up to it. Shit, yeah, we've got a kid that's struggling. He's sleeping on the streets at 10 or 11, not at night, 10 or 11 age, because he hasn't got a safe place to go to. And then we get to the point, well, we're going to prosecute this kid and put him in detention, whereas what he needed was protection and guidance and direction.
Yeah, and I think that's where our system's kind of broken down. It's that it's all about the punishment and never about the accountability and the repair after that. And we're so focused on the punishment side, as so vengeful, that we've forgotten that people get out of prison.
Yeah.
They pretty much always get out of prison. Like there's very few people who are doing the rest of their lives in there. And so isn't it upon the people who we entrust to enact the forms of justice to make sure those people don't get out and commit another offence like we see in the media time and time and time again?
Yeah. That's something that I have, and I got to put my hand up. When I was in police, I wasn't thinking about the punishment as much. I was thinking about, okay, my role as a policeman was catch the person that's committed the crime, then the justice system will sort it out. Didn't really give a lot of thought to what happens in prison or why people get out of prison and I'm chasing them again to put them back into prison. Didn't give it a lot of consideration. But you made the point there that most people get out of jail. I think that's what the public, the naysayers that might disagree with the conversation we're having here, saying, well, stuff it, they're in prison, they're in there for a reason, they should be punished. The reality is the people that we have in prison are going to be members of society again. There's very few people in the country that have got life sentences and they're going to finish their time in prison. So people are going to be leaving prison and integrating back into society. Surely it has to be better for everyone if they come out a better person from the prison experience than when they went in.
Yeah, and the argument isn't about, well, from me, the argument isn't about whether these places should exist.
Yeah.
I think the argument is who we send there and what we're doing with them when they're there and how we support the whole of community once they're released. Like, there's lots of women who are victim survivors who don't want to go to court, who don't want their perpetrator to go to jail. They don't want that. But we never consider what the victims or the survivors in any kind of scenario want. And then when they do go to when people do go to prison, they're not getting the resources and the support that they need because they're overcrowded with people who shouldn't be there. And when I specifically talk about, women, I'm talking about like driving offences. I'm talking about shoplifting, and I'm not saying that none of those things are not wrong. They are a breach of our social contract. But the point is that they're probably not punishable by incarceration. Like if we're going to incarcerate somebody for driving without a license, what are we teaching them really? Like what are we doing to hold them accountable for doing that? And then what resources are we giving them so that they don't get out and do it again? And for women, the impacts are far beyond just the individual who's going to prison. It's the kids, It's, the cousins, because often women are caring across boundaries of family lines. They're caring for the whole community. It impacts our welfare systems. It impacts the social services sector. So when we are putting a woman in prison for a driving offence, not only does it cost our taxpayers money, but it's also costing the other women that are in there who now won't get a portion of their resources because we have an additional woman in there that shouldn't be there. Yeah. So if we removed the people or the women that, didn't require punishment by prison, we would have enough resources to ensure that the women that are in there that did do, acts of violence against another person that have done some significant harm, they would actually get the services and support they needed to get out and not come back.
Yeah.
And that is the point of our justice system.
Well, it makes sense to me, and I'm. This is a journey that I've been on since I've left the cops. But I've sat down with so many people, had the opportunity to go into maximum security prisons and really get a sense of what goes on in there, and I think we need to clarify, because people jump in, and I dare say naysayers will say, but some people need to be in prison. I haven't spoken to a prisoner that hasn't said, yes, there needs to be, some of these people should never be let out. Like, they know when there's a bad person. But that's the minority of the people in prison.
Yeah, it's a very, very small minority of people who will probably never change their behaviour because of brain chemistry, because they have experienced so much harm as young people or infants, or it's just their genetic makeup, and that's a whole different conversation, right? But that is like less than 1%, less than 0.5%, if I remember correctly. Like, those kinds of people are the persistent, dangerous
that
people
society
in
society needs to be protected.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about, like, I've got kids.
Yeah.
I live in a community.
Yeah.
I also want to feel safe, but the problem is that the more that we put the majority in prisons, the less safe we are. And it's about how we communicate that message
counterintuitive,
to
counterintuitive. But
it
if we break it down and you delve into it deeply, there is logic behind what you're saying. Let's just talk about you for a bit. And,
okay. Okay then.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up on Bribie Island.
Yeah.
So it's like a small coastal community north of Brisbane in Queensland.
Very beautiful up there.
It is, yeah. It's exploded since I grew up there, but, we grew up riding our bikes on the streets, not coming home till the street lights came on. Yeah. And, we knew everyone in our street, and we had a whole, little gang of us that kind of hung out on the street. Yeah. Not a gang, but you know what I mean.
A gang? What gang?
We had BMXs.
Oh, the BMX bandits. Jesus, they were a heavy crew. I remember when I was in gang squad going after them.
Wrong use of word.
Yeah. So your childhood, it sounds like a happy childhood.
Yeah, it was great.
Those formative years.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously experienced some hardship. My dad went to prison when I was 8. Yep. I'm going to talk about it more in the book. But we had those kinds of challenges. I had 3 brothers, and mum and mum worked, and it was challenging for a few years. But, in amongst all of that, my dad coached the football team, my brother's football teams. My mum made my dance costumes, and, we had a roof over our head and food on the table, and I went to a good high school, and, overall I had a pretty straightforward childhood apart from that.
Well, it comes through in your book that you're thankful when your life did go off track, that you had that family support, and a lot of people don't have that family support. And my assessment of it, you correct me if I'm wrong, it was that family support that actually helped save you.
Yeah, and I think too, part of it is my dad's empathy for the fact that he knew what's going on. Yeah, and it wasn't this really unknown territory. Yeah. Like, he kind of knew, and they stood by me the whole time.
Yeah. Okay, you growing up, you're part of the gang, the BMX crew. You outgrew the BMX bikes. They're a little
Let's
bit small.
not clip this down so that it just says gangs.
Okay. I didn't realise we're delving into OMCGs.
Not this one.
Okay. I think, 18 or whatever, and then you moved away, went to the Gold Coast, got attracted to the bright lights and lifestyle, which included social drugs and that type of scene. Is that where you started to head off in a different direction?
Yeah, I moved to Brisbane City when I was 18,
Yep.
and I started going to festivals, and I was working at a nightclub, and
Yep.
doing coke in the bathroom at nightclubs, and taking pills at festivals, and just recreationally, and drinking, and it was not like destructive, and I wasn't selling anything. It was just like we just kind of knew people who had them, and never never a criminality element. It was just kind of the scene in 2008.
Scene.
Yeah. And then that kind of opened, I guess, my appetite for risk increased.
Yep.
And also desensitized to like other forms of drugs.
Yeah.
And so I by the time I was 19, I was smoking ice every day.
Okay.
Well, back then, actually, it was speed.
Yeah.
And then they brought in the laws about the pseudoephedrine in the cold and flu tablets.
Yeah, in the
and
chemist.
then they, instead of cooking it locally, they started importing ice.
Yeah.
And that's how we have ice epidemic instead of the speed
I
issue.
It's I see the effect of ice, and it's such a devastating drug, and spoken to a lot of people, and even when I was in the police, I was seeing the effects of ice could have on people. I understand. Yeah, you've moved into the city, you're enjoying the life, drugs, party scene, it all seems harmless fun, and you take a few risks. Did you at any point see that? Was there any red flags to you personally that this is heading in the wrong direction? Did you start to think, I'm enjoying this too much, or not functioning when you weren't putting the drugs into your system?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to know because it's been such a long time.
Yeah.
And like so much has happened.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to kind of know if I did think, oh, this isn't good. I don't ever remember going, I need to stop doing this.
Yeah.
I think for me there was no consequence yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't lost anything.
Yeah.
I also hadn't been harmed yet.
You're maintaining a job, and on the surface you're a functioning.
Yeah, well, I worked at the nightclubs that I partied at,
Yeah,
and so it was kind of I was going to university.
Yeah.
Maintaining relationship with my family, my friends, and coke and pills didn't really seem to impact that for me at that point.
Yep.
But it escalated, and when it escalated, I did start to see consequence.
Yeah.
And when I started to smoke speed,
Yeah.
then I lost friendships.
Yeah.
And then I lost my job.
Okay. Talk us through that, how the friendships fell apart and the job.
Yeah, well, when I was using just the recreational drugs, broke up with my boyfriend and kind of spiraled out of control, and I just stopped kind of showing up, for my friends. I would disappear for weeks on end, just like partying absolutely every day, and they just wanted nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't how we were brought up.
You're too hectic.
It was too hectic for them.
Yeah.
They're going, we don't like this.
Yeah.
So, I think for me, I found a lot of value in my own self-worth in other people and how they saw me and how I was valued by them. And I was also very avoidant in conflict. So because I didn't have the language skills to articulate how I was feeling or what I was doing or why I was doing it. Yeah. And so I would just cut people off. And so I just basically cut everyone out when the speed entered my life.
Did that steer you towards the people that were into it heavier than your friends group that you left?
Yeah, I mean, because those people were going to let me do the things and not confront me about my behaviour. So my old friends, I cut them and new friends I went to. So, it was I think things happen, and I don't think I ever thought, oh, this isn't good, because I didn't have that reflective capacity. Yeah. I didn't have the ability to look at myself. Yeah. I just wanted to avoid conflict. I was definitely avoidant, attachment style, because I just didn't have the language. I just didn't know how to say, holy shit, I'm hurting. I don't know how to get out of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't have the capacity to put your hand up.
No.
What were you studying at uni?
Bachelor of Business.
Because you're smart. Well, you were smart. You're still smart. You were
Not as smart as I used to be. There's a
Right.
few brain cells missing.
Okay. Well, it always comes at a cost some way.
It's a cost.
So you were studying. You had pretty much your life in front of you. You were set up for heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Employment, you said, started to become unreliable. I once you hit the sort of regular usage of speed or ice, you don't really become a functioning function. Like I've seen functioning people that are using a lot of recreational drugs, but once you start to get, my observation of it is, once ice comes into play, it's only a matter of time before it spirals out of control.
Yeah, and at the start, I fully spiraled.
Yeah.
So like lost I could not hold a job anywhere. So like clubs just stopped, like nightclubs, because I was a bartender,
you
stopped hiring me. I wouldn't turn up, would want to leave early because I need to go get on, or I've got, just like totally didn't care about that stuff. So I stopped working for a while.
Yeah.
But I did pick up work again when I started to become a more functional drug user, because I wasn't getting high anymore. After a few years, the high's gone, and the staying up for days on end is gone.
Yeah.
And so that party sort of thing, it becomes more of an everyday. You're using it to wake up in the morning, to feel normal during the day, and it all wears off. And so I could start to function at work. So I got fairly good jobs. I was working for local government at one point. I was working for banks. So I had quite good jobs.
Yeah.
And I could show up every day.
Yeah.
But I was also smoking ice in the toilets.
Yeah. So.
And then it would spiral out of control, and I'd lose that
That
job.
to me seems like a stressful life. You're living two lives.
Yeah.
You're presenting and then sneaking to the toilet to do some ice.
Yeah. But almost, sometimes it would get too much, but almost a thrill in the moment, like I can get away with this. Yeah.
Okay, so we're seeing the progression, because I just want to, and I think this is a cautionary tale for people too, because there's so many people that, no, I'm fine with drugs, it's not going to get me, I can step away from it when I need, but eventually by the time it gets hold of you, it's too late.
Yeah, and I think what the difference is, we have to look at the reasons why people are using drugs.
Yeah.
And for me, that scene become my whole identity.
Yeah.
And it also was everything that I thought I was worth in this world, was who I showed up as in that scene. So
you got respect in that scene for being the party girl, and I'm up for that.
Yeah, and so then that's my entire self-worth.
Yeah.
And so, when I talk about my own sort of journey with drugs, it's because I was using them as a way to make the inside of myself feel better. But, other people can use here and there, and it doesn't make their life spiral out of control. There could be an argument made that eventually it will spiral out of control, because often what you're doing is trying to medicate or numb something or make yourself feel better in some way.
Yeah.
But it's about the timeline. I think the timeline's always different.
Right. What at what point in time did you realise, hey, I've got a problem here? Was there enough self-reflection before it unravelled completely? Did you start to realise, hey, fuck, I'm in trouble here?
Many times. And I would fold it all down, move back to my parents and try. I'd try and get clean.
Yeah.
It was also back in the days before we kind of had this understanding about, like, your regulation of your nervous system, or like talking about things, or what the impacts of experiences on the way that you show up in the world. Like, we didn't have that language back then. I certainly didn't, and I had absolutely no inkling of it in the world around me. So I would go back to my parents. I would just try and stay off drugs.
Yep.
I would get a job, some shitty job that I fucking hated, and sometimes it'd last 2 weeks before I went, I hate this.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. I'm going back to that. And then other times it'd be like a month or two. Yeah, and I just could never get it together, because I didn't have the skills to know, okay, my nervous system doesn't feel like I'm safe because there's no chaos. So then I would go back. And then the experiences that I had while using just like compounded that I need to stop, like, sexual assault and violence and those kinds of experiences. I always terrified me, and I tried to get away, and I just didn't have the skills to stay away.
Was that the violence, sexual assaults and violence, was that in relationship context?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not stranger violence. People in the scene, guys that I knew, some women.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was lots of that stuff that went on. So
How did you get your drugs? How did you afford it, and what were you doing to?
at the start, I just knew people who had them.
Yeah.
And so, like, there would just be one person who had lots. And I hung around with guys that, got caught up in, like, the biggest drug bust at the time. So they just had copious amounts of drugs. It's just a free-for-all. So there wasn't kind of any criminality on my side going on. But I was also always, like, crime adjacent, I would say. Like,
Okay, I did not commit that offence. I was crime adjacent.
I was crime adjacent.
That would have confused me when I'm in the cops if someone said, "No, I'm not admitting to it. I was just crime adjacent." Oh, okay.
It's a good use of language there. Yeah, I was.
A defence for everyone to go into court. Yeah.
I'm just crime adjacent. Yeah. So I'm sure there's other words that I could have, like other words that you use. I saw what was going on, but I was not a part of it.
Yeah.
So that's how I got it in the start. And then, intimate relationships, like men.
Yeah.
My boyfriend's pretty much always a dealer.
Yeah.
So that was how I got my drugs then.
Yeah.
And then once I had sort of, it spiraled out of control for the last time.
Yeah.
And I experienced like the lowest kind of point of my drug using. I just went, what am I going to do now? This is kind of the start of the end.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my car, just like faces all beaten up and.
From domestic violence?
Yeah, and I'm in my car, it's unregistered, I've got no license, it's got like no fuel, I don't have a phone. I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if it was a conscious decision, but I knew how to make money fast.
Yeah.
And so I started selling drugs.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that, but let's just delve into your relationships a bit, and that situation where you found yourself alone in the car. I think you addressed it in your book. It seems to be a cycle. I hear it so often. I know there's an attraction to the wild side, but quite often, the protective boyfriend that's looking after you. I hear it so often. Have you got a view on that? Because I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but I hear it so often. It's almost like the moment I see someone going out with the so-called cool bad guy, I'm thinking, wait, because he's going to be a dropkick. Now, I'm not. That's my view on it.
Yeah, and you're probably right. For me, like I can only speak from my experience. My appetite for risk was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like smoking ice. I'm also seeking protection.
Yeah.
Because I've experienced harm.
Yeah.
And so someone that presents as a protector is going to make me feel safe, but also the type of relationships that I would have with this man was like intense. It was wild. It was, passionate, and it was fun, and it escalates very fast into control, violence, and assault. And it's not that I'm attracted to the violence, but it's that for me, I always thought I'm good enough that he'll change. He'll love
change
me enough that he wouldn't do that to me. And I was with a guy who everyone told me he is a psycho. Do not get with him. He said to me himself, like, I'm not a good guy. And I was like, I'm not bad. Like, you're not, why would you do that to me? I'm not a bad person. I'm not going to make you violent because you'll love me enough. So I never think it's like women go, I'm attracted to the violence. It's kind of, I'm attracted to the intensity of this relationship, and often that can escalate into violence. And don't get me wrong, look, sometimes I gave as good as I got. And it definitely, not in the start, I wasn't a violent person, but after time, you learn how to protect yourself.
And I suppose in a toxic relationship that can become, you get desensitised to it.
Yeah.
And if you're both using, you're probably not looking at life through the clearest lens.
No. And there's also the paranoia. There's also the heightened, everything's heightened. And also you're never like regulated like this with your emotions. You're like up and then you're down and then you're like, I love you so much. And then it's like, I fucking hate you. I want to kill you. You know?
I shouldn't be laughing, but
no,
it's just
true.
a recipe for disaster,
It is.
isn't
It is. And we're all out here hurt people just like in this chaos of this world.
Yeah.
And then there's also all of the other shit that goes around it, the cheating and the and you're out all night and the distrust and all of those things, and that just heightens the emotions. And certainly for me, I didn't start off being a violent person or even like, going down that road. But, by the end, I was just as harmful as I was hurt.
Yeah, no, well, that's you make sense in what you're saying. That's a sort of honest assessment of what you went through. When you said probably the worst part, what happened there where you found yourself in the car without a phone and...
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst violence that I'd ever experienced, but it's definitely the turning point. And I look at my life as kind of, left or right choices. Like I said in the National Press Club, it was like, this was my left or right choice. And at that point, I chose the wrong way. I, instead of going to a phone box, calling mum, like packing it down and just kind of working it out, I just drove to my like a dealer's house that I knew, and was like, can you pick me up?
Yeah,
and I'll,
as in getting the drugs for
up front.
I'll
sell them. I'll bring the cash back. Yeah. And he was kind of like, no, and I was like, well, I need something. So it was like half of what I asked for. Negotiating, and then I started from there. Yeah.
How do you? Well, I'll ask it in two parts. How did you feel at the time when you were selling drugs? And how do you feel now, looking back, the fact that you were selling drugs?
At the time, I felt like before I started selling drugs, I had no power.
Yeah.
I had no control over my life, and I had no like self-worth at that point in my life again. And when I was selling drugs, I had control.
Right.
I had the power back for the first time in a really long time. I had power back in my life and choice.
Right.
And it felt exciting, and I felt confident, and I felt like I knew what I was doing because I'd always been crime adjacent. So I already
new legal terminology.
Don't tell the cops that one. Like I had always seen how it's done, and the type of personality that I am.
Yeah.
It was almost like second nature to me, and it never felt wrong.
Right.
And I never felt like I was doing anything wrong, because I wasn't rocking up into random people's doorsteps going, do you want to buy some drugs? It was people come to me,
right, you
asking for them.
See yourself as a supplier to people that were going to get it one way or the other.
Yeah.
But that's it. I'm just trying to get the... Cause
I'm not kind of going out there pushing it. It was people are asking for it. I've got it. Yeah. And, they're using it anyways.
Yeah.
It was never this, it felt bad. It never felt wrong. Obviously I knew it was a crime because I'm not out there, telling the cops I'm doing it, but I knew it was a crime, but it never felt wrong. And I think that's kind of a difference.
Okay. How does the Tahlia circa 2026 feel about that now, looking back at it?
Look, I think she only knew what she knew.
Yeah.
I don't regret things in my life, because ultimately they made me who I am and the lessons that I have learnt today. And I've also served my time and been punished and been held accountable and repaired the harm, tried to do my best to repair the harm that I caused communities while I was doing it. Yeah. So like the Tahlia today goes, that Tahlia, I need to care and love for her, because she didn't know any better. Okay. And she did her best to like survive.
Yeah.
And my intentions weren't ever to hurt people, but unfortunately, that's part and parcel. And, I don't intend to hurt people now, but I definitely could. And it's the same kind of concept. It's not like you're intending to harm.
Yeah.
And I've done my time for it. So I feel like, and it's part of my story now. And it's part of why I do what I do. And it also, lends me credibility to talk about it. And obviously the harm that's caused in community because of ICE is horrific, and people, have lost lots because of it. And probably no more so than the people who have used it.
Yeah. Okay, no, I appreciate your honesty there and the rawness of it, and I do understand what you're saying. It's hard to judge yourself on what was impacting on your decision-making back in those times, looking back from where you are now.
Yeah, and I've been judged.
Yeah, and look...
The mechanisms of law got me, and I stood in front of a Supreme Court judge and they handed down their sentence, and I took accountability. I pled guilty to all of my offences, even the ones that I wasn't technically guilty for, and copped it on the chin, did my time, got out, and
I think that's important too. If we're demanding, okay, there's rules, there's things that as society we've got to abide by, there's punishments for committing certain offences, we've got to understand that if someone's served their punishment in the time in jail or whatever it is, a fine, that's society's way of bringing them into line, and that they have paid the price for it. So, okay, I love these part of the stories when the cops caught you.
Bloody cops.
Bloody cops.
Bloody
Here
cops.
they go again.
Yeah.
What happened? How did it all unravel?
So I was in Brisbane. I was living on the Gold Coast. I was in Brisbane for the night, and I was driving back, kind of like a back road from kind of East Brisbane to the Gold Coast, through the hinterland, and they had a traffic stop, and like I used to always cruise around with gear on me, and I was pretty messy by this point in time, and they had the road was stopped, and I was like, oh, that's so weird. I found out later, a car had gone off the ditch and they're trying to pull it out, so they stopped traffic both ways. Right. And so I'm like third back. The car in front of me bangs a U-turn and goes, I'm not waiting, and they bang a U-turn. And like I'm kind of pull up second in line, and I can see, the cop can see me, I can see the cop. Like, he's not far away, but he's stopping traffic for the tow truck. It's not for me. And I grab the ounce that's kind of sitting here in the cup holder, and I put it down my pants and sort of just like sit it, inside the hem of my pants. And I'm looking around, trying not to be obvious, like looking around going, is there anything else? Is there a pipe? Like, is there, scales? Like, what have I got? Holy shit. Just so that when I drive past him, he's not going to look in the window and see shit. So I'm just kind of putting it out of sight. And then I do that, and then that car does the U-turn. And I kind of drive up second, and I think about it for a couple of seconds, and I go, nah, fuck it, I'm doing the U-turn too. And I go out to do the U-turn, and the cop kind of steps towards me and goes, what do you think you're doing? I was like, well, what did you, he didn't stop him. And he goes, pull over here. And I, in that moment, you've got a choice to make. He's not in a car. And some people aren't going to like what I have to say, but you just go. You don't stop. That's dumb. Because an evade police is a fuck all sentence, really, compared to an ounce of ice. So if they catch you at all, a hire car, like, prove it was me, sort of, that's the mentality you have at the time.
All those thoughts.
So I have those thoughts, and I go, okay, like an idiot, and I pull over because I'm
trying to play it cool.
Well, and also, I was never the type of person that is like, fuck the police. My grandfather was a police officer.
Right.
So I have all of those intersecting factors coming into every decision I make. I've been in raids before, and the police are like, you're just so polite. And
damn,
I'm like,
those parents raising me properly.
Yeah, like, you're just so polite. What are you doing here, Tahlia? Like, this is not for you. They're always saying those things to me, and that's kind of how I just treat people, but
Yeah.
also the police. And so I pull over, you know, like I'm told to. And he goes to his car, which is a bit further down. He comes back and he's got something in his hand, and it's a breathalyzer and a drug test.
Yep.
I don't drink because I'm an ice addict.
Yeah.
And that's just not on radar.
Yeah.
And I do the breath test and it passes, and I do the drug test and he waits and he goes, "You failed the drug test. Get
Yeah.
out of the car." And at this point I know
Stuffed.
I'm fucked.
Yeah.
So they get me out of the car. He searches the car. He finds a bag in my wallet and he comes over and he says, "I found a bag of gear in your wallet." And I go, "I don't know whose that is. I don't do drugs." Meanwhile, I've just got a positive drug test, an ounce down my pants. But you're in the lie, right? You deny it. You go, "That's not mine."
Yeah.
He might give me a warning. He might just like give me a warning. They call out another crew
Yep.
with a female. They say, "You're in the back of the car. You're going to do a strip search back at the station, and we'll charge you with what we found."
Yeah.
And we go back to the station. I go into the room with her, and I just pull out the drugs from down my pants. And it's not just one bag because there's so many other things. Like there's a pipe and there's this and there's, and so I've just pulled out all this paraphernalia onto the bench, and she just looked at me like, "This isn't good for you.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be good for you." And I'm sitting in the watch house. They processed me into the watch house. It's not the first time I've been in a watch house, but only ever temporarily. You know, just kind of, they don't put you in the cells
Yeah,
and
just-
process
but
you. They
they're
just
just
put you in like a
charging you,
holding bit, and then they give you watch house bail.
Yeah.
And then, or they just release you because they couldn't charge you with anything. But this is the first time they processed me into a watch house. And when I was sitting in that watch house, they come to the gate and they go, "We raided your unit." And I thought, fuck, I'm never getting out of here.
Yeah.
I'm never getting out. They found lists and
Oh, yeah.
Fanar and
Yeah.
shit that wasn't mine, but no one else is in the unit, so it is mine, and just so much stuff. And because I was never careful.
Yeah.
And I never thought that they'd raid my unit. Like, how the hell did they find it? You know, like, holy shit, that's some good police work.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, like, geez, you guys really went on this one. So then they charged me with all this stuff.
What were the charges you got?
The charges I got then were not the charges I was sentenced for,
Right.
because there's obviously like a lot of back and forth between lawyers and stuff that goes on. But I got charged with commercial supply,
Right. Serious?
very serious, possession of a whole shitload of things. I had someone else's passport, which was like possession of. It was like a federal offence. Like
It doesn't look good when you coupled with all your other offences.
Yeah, it was it was wild. And so failing to unlock a mobile device and all of these things. So they charged me with a whole heap of stuff. And then I spend like the weekend in the watch house. I see the magistrate on the Tuesday, and because they got me on the Friday, and the magistrate gives me bail.
Yeah.
No conditions.
I ask you this, and we'll obviously talk about it, but I know in your book and when I've heard you talk that you're almost surprised and indignant that they didn't give you conditions because it just...
They dropped me back off at the car that they picked me up from, and I just jumped back in it and drove straight to my dealer's house and went, "I just got out of the fucking watch house."
Yeah. And is that is that when you adopted this? I've made notes of it. Like it's basically, fuck it, I'm in trouble. I'm out. I haven't got bail conditions, and I think there was a quote I saw from an article.
Burn my life to the ground.
I just set my life on fire. I was being really destructive, taking cocktails of drugs. Is that so? After you've been arrested, so this. Potentially was the warning sign for you. You've spent a couple of days in the watch house, which is an experience within itself, and then you've been released. You knew these matters are going to come up in court. But you adopted the attitude, well, let's have fun before.
Yeah, well, before this,
Yeah.
my life, I had a clean slate.
Yeah.
And my life could be whatever I chose it to be.
Okay, so you could steer it back into the straight, normal life without any
I was just getting some
damage.
cash so
Yeah.
that I could get my shit together and get back on track, and kind of got carried away with it.
Yeah.
And it became my identity. But before I got charged with all that stuff, I wasn't a crim. Like, the cops didn't know me. I was free to kind of stop at any time. But after they charged me, my lawyer's going, you're going to prison.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's give it a good crack then. Like, fuck it.
Okay.
I was like, what else is my life going to be now? I'm going to go to jail.
Yeah.
And that sentence stays in your head, like, you're going to prison anyways. So you may as well just do whatever you're doing now until you go to prison, and then work it out, you know?
So what chaos did you get up to then?
So before that, I wasn't really like taking Fana, like GHB, fantasy, or G, or whatever it is people call it now. I don't know. I'm too old.
Yeah.
I've been out of it for a while. So I was taking that like on the regular, and I didn't use it before.
Yeah.
I'm just like smoking as much gear as I could get my hands on, driving stolen cars, allegedly, like, you know, just crazy
mayhem.
shit, just stupid stuff, like just really reckless, didn't care about my life, silly stuff, like hanging out with people who are on the run, just shitty.
So
shitty.
I'm just trying to understand the psychology of it, but you're at the point, up until that point, your life you could have steered it back in a different direction. You could have gone and clean slate, and that was an experience. Lucky I escaped that.
Yeah.
But once you were put, all the charges were on, and you knew, and the advice you got given from your solicitor that you're likely going to jail, you just thought, fuck it. I'll do I'll just have some fun. I'm now a criminal. I may as well live like a criminal. Is that the mindset?
Yeah, part of it. And part of it is also I enveloped the entire identity of this as being me now.
Right.
Like I went, this gives me a bit of street cred. You know, I'm cool now, or like gives me a bit of authority because, like, you know, I'm going to prison now. Like I've got these charges. Like kind of it's a weird psychology to kind of think about, but it almost was like a solidifying that was going to be my path now. Like this was who I was. Because like that judge could have, you know, the magistrate, it's not their fault. It's not about placing blame at all. It's my fault. I'm a product of my decisions.
That's important to
say.
Like
I am a product of my decisions, and I take full responsibility. Yeah. But, you know, that judge had an opportunity to go, we are not releasing you back into the community. You are going to go to a rehabilitation facility because you clearly have a problem.
Yeah, now that's an interesting point, and one I think we need to explore. That's that intervention in that, and a lot of people caught up in the drug world as users and most time users at some point in time become sellers because it's the nature of the
and it's expensive and
it's the nature of the industry. But what you're suggesting here is that at that point in time you clearly had a problem. Like you walk out the door, you're going to get straight back on the gear.
They know it.
It would have been better at that point addressing it through medical therapeutic approach to dealing with your problem.
Yeah, or at least someone sit down and have a conversation with me and go, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can either get yourself away from this, get yourself clean. Like, what do you want to do with your life? You want to spend the rest, you want to spend the rest of your days going in and out of prison. I can tell you it's not fun. Yeah. Like, and sit down and have these conversations with people. Like, if you go to prison, it's going to be really hard to get a job. You might not be able to travel to some countries. Your whole life's ahead of you. Like, this is not your whole life. Like, some sort of intervention. But, like, no one... The only conversation I had was with my lawyer who went, you're going to prison.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay then, sure. Like, all right then, well, I better make it a good one. Like, I don't know. I just think there is a responsibility. And if people still choose to go down that path, because we ultimately can't make people change, right? We
That's right.
can't make people change. in any intervention, people have to choose, and then at least you have like a whole picture choice.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a choice. They're going, here, go out, get out of here, get out of the court. And like, what's my choice? I have to return the hire car. I also owe people money now.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, you're kind of forced into...
It's almost like the system's overwhelmed with it, because if we made you a case study and just had all the smartest brains in psychologists and everyone else working at you, there's a good chance we could turn you around. But that takes resourcing and, things that clearly we don't have.
Yeah.
But if we did put the money in there, because it costs us a shitload of money keeping you in prison, what's it, $150,000, I think, for an adult inmate?
$450 a day.
Yeah.
For the adult woman.
So even if we look at it from a financial point of view, it would be best spent money trying to divert you from your actions.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting because you're looking at it what I consider objectively, like you're talking, this is my life and this is what happened. But we could make a difference in that first time. Clearly, like being a cop or not even being a cop, I could look at the situation you were caught in and gone, okay, I can pretty much tell what you've been doing for the last couple of years.
They knew.
Yeah.
I'd been in raids. I've been present. You know,
Yeah.
they knew me. These cops that got called out already knew me. You're calling me by my first name.
Yeah.
You know, they know
so
that I've been.
They knew the path you were going down.
Yeah, but you know, their hands are tied. Like, it's not like it's their responsibility to go.
I'm not in this discussion that the police can't do anything other than enforce the law.
Enforce the law, yeah.
It's the justice system that perhaps we could try to do it a little bit differently.
And I think it's all systems that interplay with each other.
Yeah.
Like, it comes from the top down. It comes from the people who make policy,
Yeah.
all the way down to the people that enforce that policy. But I want to make a point, like the Tahlia that got arrested that first time deserved help. She deserved a choice. The Tahlia that got arrested and got sent to prison the last time probably needed to go to prison.
Yeah.
I was being pretty harmful.
Yeah.
I was pretty terrible.
But,
and not that it's hard to, I mean, and I'm the same person, but like, what was the other response that we could have had?
Yeah, by that stage it was too late. You needed some form of punishment for.
Well, I just needed some form of accountability.
Yeah, okay.
I needed to be held accountable, but I also, once I was being held accountable, needed resources to not do it again.
What
So
we're talking about here, drug
Yeah.
courts are very much aligned with that. Have you got any knowledge of drug courts?
They're underfunded.
Yeah,
They're not everywhere. They're starting to be defunded in some states and closed down. We've got some reforms going on in Queensland that basically is repealing like diversion laws.
Yeah.
And we're going backwards in some places.
That's concerning because I thought that was a progressive way of dealing with the drug issue we've got in society and the drug courts. But
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes if it just doesn't fit the narrative of politicians going for elections saying let's get tough on crime.
Yeah.
I think we need to get smart on crime, not tough on crime.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about your jail experience.
Okay.
Which is never much fun. But I want you, when we come back, we might take a break now.
Okay.
When we come back, I want you to take us through what it's like going into prison, because unless you've been there, I don't think anyone can fully appreciate it. So if you could describe to us what you were going through when you pull up in the truck for the first time and realise that this is where you're spending a considerable amount of time.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Cheers.